I'm Dan Carell with DCA-CardLinx, and this is Commerce Code, a bi-weekly digital commerce podcast for leaders in card linking, loyalty and digital marketing, mobile wallets and payments, and financial data. Thanks for joining this running conversation with leaders in the industry. And if this podcast is helpful to you, come join us at a DCA-CardLinx event. You can learn more at www.digcomall.org. This week, I'm talking with Eileen Peacock and MB Bell from Valuedynamx. Longtime listeners will remember we've had Valuedynamx on the show before, but the story has grown a lot since then, and that's really what today is about. A little about the company. Valuedynamx is a global provider of curated, data-driven purchase rewards that help members get more value from everyday shopping and engagement. Card-linked offers are part of that, and that's the piece our DCA audience tends to know best. But Valuedynamx extends well beyond card-linked offers, helping loyalty programs give members more ways to earn, redeem, save, and access value by connecting them to relevant offers, brands, and shopping experiences. That's supported by a flexible mix of affiliate, CLO, gift cards, and strategic relationships with leading brands such as Apple, giving programs the flexibility to tailor the experiences to their objectives and their members' needs. Valuedynamx is part of Collinson, one of the companies that helped shape the modern practice of loyalty and rewards. Eileen and MB have joined me today to talk about how loyalty has evolved from standalone programs into connected ecosystems, why partnerships and the right mix of them have become the real competitive differentiator, how embedded commerce is reshaping the customer journey, and the Valuedynamx story itself, including its global partnership with Apple, and how it reflects the company's broader role as a partner connector hub. So stay tuned for One to Many, how strategic partnerships are rewiring the modern loyalty ecosystem, a conversation with Eileen Peacock and MB Bell of Valuedynamx. Commerce Code is brought to you in part by VantageScore. 8 of the top 10 banks and over 3,400 leading banks and fintechs use VantageScore to predict and manage repayment risk. Learn more about the latest advances in credit scoring and how to grow your lending business by leveraging financial inclusion at VantageScore.com. Eileen and MB, welcome to Commerce Code. It's great to have you both on the show. And before we dig into the substance, just wanted to get a quick hello from each of you and just tell us where you're each joining us from today.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'll start. I'm actually in our Boston office today. I would normally be in my lovely home in Pound Ridge, New York, but I wanted to be with MB when we recorded this.
And now that Eileen's taken away the thunder of me being in the Boston office, I came up from Cape Cod, which is where I'm very, very lucky to live full time.
Oh, my goodness. And I can attest, because I can see them, that they are, in fact, in an office. So there's at least one organization left. It's summer, and you're making the ultimate sacrifice of getting in a car or a train, or as it may be. Okay, great. Well, look, I want to start by just sort of setting the stage, again, for our listeners who I think are pretty familiar with Valuedynamx, but I think that many of our audience members know Valuedynamx through one primary door, card-linked offers, largely because that's kind of the world of the Digital Commerce Alliance and Commerce Code. But the company does a lot more than that now. And so, Eileen, I wonder if you can sort of give us the current overview, like what Valuedynamx is today and sort of the full breadth of what you do across the loyalty and rewards space.
Absolutely. So Valuedynamx is actually part of the Collinson Group, which has a very deep heritage across loyalty, travel, benefits, customer engagement. So if you look at Collinson as a whole, we are Priority Pass. We are Airport Dimension. So if you've been lucky enough to be in a Chase Sapphire Lounge recently. And we also have insurance-related services. We've got a huge group that really looks at everything globally across commerce, travel, and everyday experience. Within that lives Valuedynamx. So for us, we've got, as you mentioned, card-linked offers, earn and burn with affiliate. We've got a platform. We've got merchant-fulfilled offers. We recently added a fantastic partnership with Apple, which is a great example of another way we're a full-service loyalty partner. So it's really, for us, about that Collinson heritage, building on that and driving scale, providing a unified solution to support commerce and really help brands connect with their customers and doing it globally.
I think there's a broader kind of culture market context for everything that you've just said in terms of the growth of the company and the footprint. So for a long time, loyalty programs kind of were fairly self-contained things. So you earned points with a brand, you redeemed them with that brand, and that was like the loop. It was a closed loop. And that's not really the world anymore. We've been on that journey for a little while. So Eileen, how do you see loyalty evolving kind of from those standalone programs into the broader ecosystems that we're talking about now and that you've kind of described? Like, we're in the middle of that evolution, right? So merchants, platforms, and the customer experience, they're all connecting. And I think Valuedynamx essentially intends to be at the center of that.
Perfectly said. So thank you. Yeah, it really is an ecosystem now. So it used to be enough to have that closed loop loyalty. So I'd go to a single store, I'd earn some sort of benefit, points or otherwise, to use back at that store. And suddenly, and I frankly have a stash with, I think, over 100 cards from old loyalty programs where that was exactly the model. Today, that just doesn't work.
I'm imagining like a modern version of the Girl Scout.
That is
what we're talking about here?
I sewed them all on my old Girl Scout sash. I'm dating myself, and stood up at a presentation and said, "This is where loyalty was. Look at where we are now."
I'm afraid there are people listening who don't know what a Girl Scout sash is, and I also feel that we should probably not get into it. Let's just say it's a sort of an accessory. It's a way of accessorizing that was popular among certain credentialed young women.
Perfect. And we will leave it at that. So right now, it's really about having that ecosystem and making sure that when I'm a member of one program, I actually have the opportunity to engage with other merchants, other brands, different redemption opportunities, different earned redemption opportunities. It's got to feel holistic. And the way we tend to approach it is to imagine and deliver what I think of as a day in the life. So what is your customer doing throughout a day, whether it's shopping, planning travel, doing something with their bank or financial services, their everyday life behaviors, and how many places can we intersect with that customer to make those engagements, those efforts, those tasks more meaningful, more valuable, and bring loyalty back to that core program.
Great. MB, I wonder if you can kind of make so Eileen, accurate description and helpful. And I think especially because Commerce Code listeners tend to be pretty sophisticated, like industry players, I think that all makes sense. But I still think it's always helpful to sort of get a concrete example. And so MB, I wonder if you can kind of make that concrete. So like, where have you actually seen the connected loyalty experience come together? So whether it's, financial services or it's travel, or that just like couldn't have happened in the old standalone model.
No, absolutely. And, thinking about that, how a day in the life, right, can and should move with the customer across almost all of their daily interactions. There's also kind of the concept of life through the days. Right. So I think JetBlue, to me, is a great example of a brand that thinks beyond a single program interaction. Right. So it isn't just when you fly, right, or when you book a flight. It's how do you then expand the TrueBlue program, right, and the value that those points can bring. How do you expand that into customers' daily lives? So exactly that, having that ecosystem. So, for example, TrueBlue Shopping, which is powered by Valuedynamx, right, brings members more way to earn on everyday spend across 1,000 merchants. TrueBlue also offers other ways to earn via dining, right, experiences, things like that. Thinking about Priority Pass, right? Eileen mentioned is a sister company of Valuedynamx. JetBlue and their co-brand partner Barclays, right? I think it was a year ago, which is hard to believe, they launched their Premier Card, right? To play in that space of a fee card that brings a lot of value, including accelerated earn, but also Priority Pass membership, right? So again, JetBlue being relevant and their TrueBlue loyalty program being relevant across as many interactions as possible, right? To really bring that value, because again, loyalty isn't just one interaction, right? It's literally, part of that ecosystem. And thinking about too, sort of on a broader scale, where strategic partnerships like Apple, right, can create more meaningful earning opportunities tied to high consideration purchases, but also, leveraging Apple products for behavioral rewards, right, engagement. Again, at the end of the day, what meaningful value can you bring to a member, whether it's earning, redeeming an experience, a thank you? I think that's super, super important because, again, loyalty doesn't live in the moment, right? It lives in the everyday life where relevance is absolutely key.
The value of a reward, I think a part of this, and I'm resisting the temptation to go on a nerd digression on currency valuation and why currencies are worth things. But it's a currency. You've got a thing, you've got a point, you've got a whatever you want to call it, a credit of some kind. And, its value does depend on what can you buy with the thing. And, you mentioned the sort of like the coin of the realm these days, because we all buy, I think it's 2.6 Apple products a week, against our will. Like there's a tractor beam, right, that you just get sucked. But so, and I think part of the reason why the airline thing had always been so valuable is like, well, it is a thing you're going to come back to, right? So there's that, but then it unlocks so much more value, and that's the ecosystem thing. Like what can you do with this thing, and which partners you have in it. Seems like the differentiator is sort of shifted away from, one size fits all programs toward the strength, the flexibility of the partner mix. So getting the right merchants, the right tech platforms, the right engagement solutions. So, Eileen, I wonder, is that how you see it? Where's the strategy here? Why is the partner ecosystem itself becoming that competitive edge?
So I think it's even a step further back with who the partner is. So, I'm biased, but I think Valuedynamx has an extraordinary partner network. Scale absolutely matters, but that's not enough anymore. So if you really want a strong loyalty strategy and a strong loyalty program, you've got to have that right partner. And you can't start, and please don't let Colin Evans hear this, you can't start with a revenue model. Because what you're really trying to create is that emotional loyalty, that person wants to engage with you and they want to talk to people about what your program is doing for them. So revenue matters, but it's got to follow customer value and that customer emotional loyalty. So yes, if you are giving the right offer at the right moment with the right mechanic to the right person, great, you're doing a phenomenal job. Do you have the right partner? Are they helping you figure out who else should be in the program, what those redemption items should be? Are they flexible? Are they able to bring you new ideas and hear your ideas and frankly, sometimes say no, or tell you when something may not align? All of that to me is part of that partner ecosystem that we keep talking about.
And it's going to depend on, like the situation, the commercial context. And MB, I know you've got some thoughts about like what does building the right mix look like in practice? So when you're assembling, merchant partners, integrations inside a program, it's going to depend, I assume, on the program. And this is the expertise that you guys have. So how do you decide what belongs and what doesn't?
No, it's a great question. And sort of building on what Eileen said, finding that right partner who can be strategic and understand the questions to ask, right? Because while we can focus on airlines or banks, they're very good at what they do every day, right? The right partner is going to bring that expertise of what you're looking to do and ask those questions around, and I'm not being circular in my answer, Dan, but just thinking about the right mix, right? Really depends on what the program is trying to drive, right? So are they trying to drive acquisition, engagement, retention, redemption? And that mix can change all the time. But thinking about what their goals are and then thinking about, okay, back to, what's the right brand, what's the right product, what's the right experience to actually engage and attract that consumer, right, to do the desired behavior. So a willingness to test and learn, right? And as Eileen said, sometimes a willingness to listen to, sure, that's a really interesting idea. But, again, our experience with Valuedynamx, we had a few partners who tried that. It didn't work well, right? The goals weren't achieved, but have you thought about this, this, and this? So I think, again, thinking through those goals and then that next step of merchant selection, again, or product selection really should reflect whatever that customer journey you want them to be on, right? Where do you want them, not just to start and end, but depending on what it is, how do you want that experience to be? Back to that emotional loyalty, because consumers, right, remember that. Back to I love the badge, right? As someone who is, I think 13 co-brand cards, because I'm just that crazy, and loyalty can change, right? Depending on where you're flying, what you're looking for. But the card I'll stay with, right, or the program I'll stay with is the one that makes me feel that they get me. Again, back to that experience, that it makes sense, it's coherent, the paths are clear. And as a consumer, I'm not working so hard, right, to understand how do I need to engage where to get what, and what's the value in that. So, I think that the loyalty continuum, if you will, really absolutely hinges on the experience. And then to finally answer your question, back to that merchant or brand mix, right? How you choose that, it's based on what's going to fit into that particular experience and that journey.
Relevance, ease, and value.
Exactly. Gosh, like a triangle, like for Valuedynamx?
For instance.
What?
I'm thinking about ease, and you mentioned ease, and I want to come back to that for a second, but I do want to pause on an important thing you said. 13 co-brand cards. Do you have a sash? Like, because it feels like that's the right number of cards.
Well, there's a little PII on that sash. So no, I do not, but I have a very full wallet. We'll put it that way. So I am no one's goal for top of wallet.
Do they make wallets that big? It feels like that's more like a small bag. Anyway,
Tory Birch does, and I bought it through True Blue Shopping. Shameless plug.
For the terrific. And I have never thought this in my life before, but there must be, maybe there's not, an upper boundary to how many like virtual cards an Apple Wallet can take. Maybe there's like 1,000. Maybe they already anticipated your problem, but you can just load them virtually into your phone and it's all fine.
Well, I have them all virtually in my phone, so there seems to be no limit. But what I thought Daniel was going to suggest a support group out there, which there might be, but that's for a different podcast. So.
Yes, I'm thinking of Single Parents Alone Together, which is my favorite support group in the fictional world. And anyway, whatever. Okay, fine. So I mentioned ease, and I said I wanted to come back to that, and I'll throw in a buzzword that I don't know if we've uttered yet in this episode, which is embedded commerce, where sort of the customer can just where it's embedded, right? Where you don't have to. I mean, I'm not to name names. I probably couldn't because I won't remember exactly. But I mean, I remember some loyalty, quote unquote, redemption experiences, I'll say decades ago, that were like, I don't know if I had to fill out paper forms like in a doctor's office, but it felt close, right? It was, and this is the opposite of that, which is to like, how can you just be able to have loyalty experiences that are in the path, the natural flow? We talk about it sometimes as reducing friction, but this is more than that, right? This is making it part of it. And so, MB, I know you've got some thoughts on this, like, and how is embedded commerce, like changing engagement? And what does it mean to have a more seamless, more personalized experience, from the member's perspective?
No, absolutely, Dan. And I think too, you just, hitting that, talking about redemption, right? I think no matter what you look at today, for the most part, you've got two different silos, right? And earning and redeeming, two separate, paths within an experience. And so what we've done is kind of thinking about how do you then bring that embedded commerce, right? As you said, getting rid of that friction, bringing loyalty into the customer's natural path. Our theory, which I don't think is unique, but I think it is one that we lead with our solutions strategy and recommendation on, is that burning drives earning. Right. So which makes sense. Right. So that dynamic is super important, because redemption is not the end of the journey. Right. It's literally the moment that motivates the next cycle of engagement. So instead of forcing members, right, to visit separate destinations for earning and redemption, you can actually connect those experiences more directly. And one of our clients, Emirates, for whom we run the Skywards Miles Mall in at least 5 countries, including the US, UAE, and UK, we've integrated in one user experience the opportunity to earn, right, through affiliate, earn through CardLinx, but also then redeem immediately for digital gift cards, right, that you can store right away in your digital wallet. So that idea of an example of how earning and redemption can bring it closer together within that same experience. And we did a study, it was a few years ago now, but just the significant multiplier, I think it might have been 4 or 5 times, the more active someone redeems, the more active they are in earning. right? I call it the circle of love. Other people call it the loyalty flywheel, whatever you want to call it. It's just that idea that back to the customer or the member feeling that currency is very valuable and literally thinking of how they could use it like cash, which is where digital gift cards, I think, are super valuable there. So at the end of the day, right, bring relevant brands at the relevant time to a member and meet them where they are, right? But also creating moments they can remember. And those moments don't have to, the moments you remember don't necessarily have to be the big ones like, oh, you went to Italy, right? Although that would be a big one if you redeemed your miles. It could be, wow, I don't have enough miles for a trip, but I was able to use some and right away, get a latte at Starbucks. And I did that because I belong to Emirates Skywards. So I think it's just, again, really thinking about how to create embedded commerce, right? Great buzz term, but if it doesn't work and it isn't smooth and obvious for the member, then it's just there, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, with the I'm thinking about kind of frequency and importance, I guess, and there's probably a 2x2 matrix, which mercifully the listeners of Commerce Code will not be subjected to because this is an audio format. But if you must, right, draw it in your mind. But in the old days, and this is all stylized and a little bit unfair, but like in the old days, it took longer. You built up value. Maybe it was the Italy trip or whatever. And the friction, the barrier, the difficulty of redemption was higher. But if you're talking about an Italy trip, then, fine. And I think now there is still that. And the fact that the redemption is easier is great, although that probably is less of a deterrent if you're talking about a big thing to redeem to. The problem has been where you want to be able to have people more frequently engage with a loyalty program. The barrier has to be lower, right? You're not going to pull out the clipboard, so to speak, and fill out the paper form and whatever for something that's more along the lines of, a free coffee, et cetera. And so putting it in the path, but that also, again, this is where I can imagine tailoring it to the needs of the particular program, the merchants, et cetera, that are involved, because I'm sure this is all the magic that you're working on your side, but you're looking at like, what are the average balances and how often do people redeem? And, and to your point, does frequency of redemption and engagement correlate strongly with activity of earning, which of course is the goal. And so all that seems to me pretty important. I think of it in the category of like making it easier to work. Can I do the thing? If you make it easier, you get more of it.
Yep. Like ordering Dunkin' on your mobile app to go pick it up.
Is that, you are located, as we mentioned at the very beginning, in Boston, which is the Vatican City of Dunkin'. Is it necessary to like, do you have to do a thing on your phone in order to get a Dunkin' these days? Or I just thought that you guys had like an intravenous arrangement with that organization.
No, don't give her any ideas, please.
That's for the Sam Adams.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, Sam Adams. I guess so. All
Sam Summer.
That's good. There's a kind of a bigger structure behind all this that I wanted to talk about a little bit. And I did catch the side allusion to Colin himself, but Valuedynamx is part of the Collinson Group, which also, includes businesses like Priority Pass, Airport Dimensions. You mentioned this in the outset. And so, Eileen, I wanted to hear from you kind of how does being part of that broader Collinson kind of facilitate what you're able to offer clients, because we're talking about integration of so many different things, so much more going on now than before. And so how do you think about your internal strategic partnerships? How do you use those relationships to reach clients and markets that you couldn't do alone, just powered by Dunkin' and sitting in Boston?
So I think that the most straightforward thing that we have is the benefit of decades-long relationships with some of the global partners that Collinson has supported, whether it's Priority Pass or Airport Dimensions or the insurance business or Valuedynamx, so that we're not nearly old enough. So we are already trusted and valued. And so when someone from Priority Pass makes an introduction for us to one of their partners, we're going in already with I would say, ahead of anyone else that's walking in the door, because they've probably been doing business with us for 10, 20, 30 years. So I think as they've built this amazing ecosystem and they're thinking about the customer journey and the experience, and again, anyone who's been in any of our Priority Pass lounges or if you use any of our other products, we understand what's happening in that day of life with the customer. And so, again, that global reach we have, that trusted brand we have, the ability, and MB used Emirates as an example. There are really not many companies that can replicate what we do in all of those markets. Mm-hmm. And so, again, we're leaning on the Collinson heritage and the Collinson legacy to help us bring that to life. And, quite honestly, to be able to call a colleague who's in Abu Dhabi, Singapore, Dubai, wherever they might be, and say, can you go talk to this partner for us? Again, not a lot of people can pick up the phone and make that happen and say to a partner, sure, X airline who has an office in Singapore, we can have someone over there tomorrow. What time works? That's really amazing. And having worked in a lot of other places, other loyalty companies, that is absolutely, those are the things that set us apart. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the global footprint maps well to just the changes in the economy, but also the fact that the loyalty ecosystem, in a sense, I don't know if it's quite historically accurate to say, well, I think it is, started with airlines and started with that travel industry, right? And so it's always had a sort of a history there. Its genetics, you could say, are global in a sense. So I want to get concrete with a particular example that I know is important for you, and I've mentioned to this already. The Apple thing has come up before, and MB, I think the Apple partnership that you have is a good showcase for sort of how when this works, how can you see it. So I'd love for you to kind of walk us through what it is and why it's to you a different kind of partnership.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm very excited to be able to lead it in the U.S. and it is talking about the global reach and what sets Valuedynamx apart. But Apple is a great example of an iconic, right, world recognized consumer brand that literally chose Valuedynamx because of its global reach. So starting in the UK a little over a year ago, and not just our global reach, by the way, our market experience, partner network, that ability, as Eileen was talking about, to really deliver bespoke programs across the regions. So starting with the UK a little over a year ago with Apple, we are now live in 8 markets for Apple. So back to that one-to-many example. And the US is one of the more recent markets. And we literally are an extension, and I'm quoting our Apple contact here, we are an extension of their business development team. So to, this strategic partnership, and we hope it's one of many, not hope, we expect, right, with iconic brands where we can connect, right, members of loyalty programs and also, financial institution, bank customers with a brand that is totally relevant, right, across many markets, many demographics. You joke, Dan, that we buy 2.6 Apple products a week, right? I mean, it absolutely, well, we're not joked, especially earpods, which seem to disappear like socks. For some reason, they're all somewhere. We just don't know where. But
I was looking in the strangest place for some unrelated thing. And I found a pair from my daughter from some years ago. And I'm old. I'm like 100. And so I had to do an investigation and ask embarrassing questions of the family, like, what are these and how long did they last and whatever? You know what I have in my hands now? My own pair. Anyway, Okay, go on.
Yep. No, I have the same one. So, but that, just thinking about, so that's one type of product, right? So the use cases, we talked about earning and redeeming, but the use cases of our, partnership with Apple can be, a closed discount store for behind the firewall, which is something we recently launched in the UK with Lloyd's, right? The biggest bank in England, the ability to bring discounts to Lloyd's card members via the app once you log in. And so what I love about the Apple partnership, and it's back to the strategy of the partner, right? Find the right partner who's going to say, what do you want to do, right? We have an Apple solution for that, or we have another, merchant brand solution for that. Again, back to what's the behavior you want to drive, what's the behavior you want to incent, what's the behavior you want to thank. So it really is obviously the value is in the Apple name, but it's that ability for us to be able to structure and facilitate a partnership, right, with both our clients. And it's my job to get more clients for Apple, as Eileen reminds me daily. And it's true. But, that ability to have the flexibility to structure that partnership in a variety of ways, right, and phases that are going to meet at the end of the day, delight the customer, which in turn, back to not leading with revenue. Sorry, Colin. But in turn, right, will absolutely, you make the customer happy, you're going to drive revenue.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love this. It's not rocket science. None of this is rocket science.
Yeah. Well, and it's true at a fundamental level, right? Like it is cart before horse to think about revenue before thinking about value from the customer. To take kind of a step back into the program operator's seat, MB, with something like the Apple thing running, how do you measure value both kind of from the merchant or the program and for the customer? So what are the dials on your dashboard?
Well, I think the most important, before you even get to the dashboard, right, on the dials, I think it goes back to helping to define what that objective is, right? And how do we want to measure it? So can give you a real life example. So we have a partner in Abu Dhabi, the first bank of Abu Dhabi, FAB. And the behavior they wanted to drive was opening up accounts with a certain minimum and then also direct deposit. So back to it's okay. So they came to this with, this is our challenge. What do you think we should do? Well, great. Let's offer an iPhone for those behaviors. And, leveraging the margin that we get from Apple, they purchased them directly from us. We did the fulfillment and they were they were amazed by the results. Basically, it drove 2.3 times the number of acquisitions that they were expecting. Part of that is that Fab was willing to do that because they knew, right, the underlying value that they would get of a customer doing those behaviors, right, was more than just the cost of the iPhone. So I think part of that, not just what are the behaviors you want to drive, think about it as overall customer value. So it isn't just that one-to-one, it's going to cost X and, I'm not too sure if I'm going to see Y. How do you define the overall customer value? And then thinking about that okay, well then let's see what we could do to make sure that we exceed your expectations and that the value isn't just from that one transaction, right? It's LTV, right? And thinking about that. So I think, again, it goes back to the best strategic partnerships, right? For us, and I think anyone, but especially for us, is when the brand, right, the client and Valuedynamx are all aligned on the goals from the beginning.
It's funny to hear you say, like, I'm thinking about the value of brands that are just white hot. And I mean, Apple has been for I don't know how many years, but the idea that you would do a prediction of how much activity you'd get by giving away iPhones, I mean, the idea that you'd even, because they come with a tractor beam, like there's no way to know, right? Like how this is going to go. So it is kind of interesting. I'm not surprised that it overperformed. And, brands like that have historically, Nike, I mean, once upon a time, Levi's, and not to suggest that they won't be doing that in the future, but like there's different brands that just have a different kind of place in the psyche and in the culture. Apple is 100% in that right now. So that's amazing. Okay, so I wanted to close just by sort of looking forward. Clearly, a lot of runway left here. I mean, as I kind of said before, we're in the middle of a transition. By no means is this, there's like a lot of work left to do. So I wonder where each of you sort of think programs and merchants are going to see benefits from this ecosystem approach over the next few years. As a reminder, we're deep into the future now. It's 2026. So it's basically a sci-fi film already because the numbers are so high. Again, I'm 100. So just wondering over the next few years, like from now to 2030, what should the leaders in our audience be sort of doing now to get ready for all that, and what's going to happen?
You hit the nail on the head, Dan. Your strategy can't be static. Your program can't be static. Your relationship with the merchants can't be static. Everything is always moving. It's going with market conditions. We're frankly setting market conditions. It used to be if you had an easy to use API and good API docs, and God, if you posted them on your website, people would come. That's just a given. That's, price of entry and then some. I think when you're looking at your program in the future, you've got to be thinking about not only what you want that to be for your customer, but again, I'll go back to that relationship with your provider or your partner. I don't use the word ethos lightly. Successful partnerships are between people who share an ethos. How you operate, how you treat the customer, how you think about long-term value, all of that has to be the same, or at least something you can discuss and get to the same place together. So you're setting a standard, and then you're building that next phase of loyalty on top of it that says, okay, this is our rewards program. We're going to support, very serious word to me, and I don't just mean with a discount. You are going to support the customer. You're going to engage with the customer. You are going to educate the customer when necessary. And it's going to be across that broader ecosystem. It's not, going back to our first questions, it's not going to be, I purchased last month in this store and next month I can use some points in that store to get the same thing. Well, it's so far in the rearview mirror, just like my sash. You really have to be relevant all the time, which again means you have to be willing to change and to manage against what the market's doing.
Great. Well, I think that's a pretty good place maybe to wrap it up, Eileen and MB, to both of you. This has been a great conversation. Sashes and other things included, tractor beams, sashes. Oh my. Well, look, thank you both for the time. Thank you for the look inside what you're building there at Valuedynamx.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
great.
Appreciate it.
Commerce Code is sponsored by Pentadata, the all-in-one financial data API. Whether it is bank account data, credit card transaction data, or credit reports and credit scores, Pentadata has it all in one simple and easy-to-use API. With coverage of over 6,000 banks, over 200 million credit files, and 60 million merchants, you can get all the data you need for your apps at pentadatainc.com. Commerce Code is a bi-weekly podcast bringing you conversations with executives who are leading the way in digital commerce. If you like Commerce Code, your company should join the Digital Commerce Alliance and become part of our mission of advancing trade for good through standard setting, industry networking, conferences, and best practice sharing. Check out our website at www.digcomall.org. On behalf of DCA, have a great week.